Thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A for the film For Estefani, Third Grade, Who Made Me a Card. My name is Joanne Parsont. I'm the Director of Education for the California Film Institute and the Family Films Programmer for the Mill Valley Film Festival. So thrilled to have this film in our Love and Teamwork Animation for All program, and even more thrilled to have our special guest, filmmaker Jordan Bruner, with us today. Thanks for joining us, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, nice. Welcome.
Thanks.
So thank you for your beautiful film. Love it. Love being able to include it in this program. And I kind of want to just start off by asking, who is Araceli Girmay and how did you learn about her story about receiving this card?
Araceli Girmay is a poet, and I was contacted by TED Education. They were doing a poetry series. So we, the filmmakers, received a variety of poems to pick from, and I just really loved her story, and I thought it would make a really beautiful film.
Ah, that's so great. So so you've never met Araceli, like this was just something that it was something that handed to you as options of things that you could work with.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. And this was a poem. That's so interesting. See, that's the part that I didn't really get about it. Can you talk a little bit about how you adapt a poem into film? And are you primarily an animator? Do you do other kinds of film, or is animation pretty much your genre?
I do mostly animation. I also do some illustration and painting as well. And how do I adapt a poem into animation? I feel like with this poem in particular, I just went through and listened to it a few times, and then some of the imagery is a little bit more descriptive or like specific, so that some of those images might be easier to adapt, but like a lot of it is kind of repeating this mysterious word over and over, and it's like, well, how do you describe that? So there is a lot of like the letters in it animating, and just like a lot of abstract movement of shapes and things, trying to kind of like mimic what would be going on in your brain when you're just trying to figure something out. And she knows that there's birds in the card, so there's a lot of birds flying through the screen. So yeah, just kind of as a process of dissecting it and trying to like connect to like the emotional meaning of it, and finding images that maybe correspond with that.
That's really great. And I love that there was like sort of a lot of kind of mixed media as far as different styles of animation and other imagery mixed in and out. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you've used in other films? Is that specific to just kind of the nature of what you were saying you kind of were feeling from reading these particular words in this poem?
Yeah, I've definitely used mixed media before, but I feel like that summer before I had worked on this, I had traveled to Colorado and had all this really beautiful imagery on my phone of some of the landscapes there. And I thought like some of the sky imagery or forest imagery just really fit and added like another level of like texture that I was just kind of being experimental with it and liked how it turned out.
And how did you choose the narrator as far as who you wanted to use for the voice to represent him?
That's Araceli's voice. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you said you were listening to it. So rather than it just being a poem that you had read, it was actually their audio. That's so great.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Lovely voice.
Right.
And how did that affect sort of like your pacing of style? Like, just the tone and movement of her voice?
I guess, yeah, when I was storyboarding everything out, it was sort of kind of just with, I added images with the pauses in her voice. And the biggest difficulty I had was, I remember when I was starting out, I wasn't sure how it would end because it's really repetitive, and it's almost like lyrical. And I remember in my boards, I just left it blank, and I was like, we'll figure this out later. And then I feel like for that, I just kind of was trying to animate it to like the pace of her voice with images I had already made and kind of cutting it up, because that's kind of how that end felt to me, was sort of a reflection back on the whole film. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, no, it definitely does. Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to make the film?
This one I worked on, I think it was about a month, like a solid 4 weeks.
And do you do pretty much all the work yourself?
On this one, I did most of it myself. I had some help from my partner, who's also an animator. He animated some of the particles in the background, but I would say like 90 8% of it I did.
That's so great. I love how this story like reflects the experience of English language learners in school too. Like it just really, like this program is also being shown in our education program and, shown to different schools. And so I just like that it, is a really sweet and kind of compassionate tale of a teacher who truly sees and hears her students who were maybe struggling with English.
Totally.
Was that a little bit of something that you were trying to portray in the imagery? Like, is that something that kind of resonated for you?
Yeah, I think just the idea of kind of like trying to figure out what someone is trying to say and like the process you might be going through imagining what especially a child is thinking of when they are trying to communicate. So yeah, I definitely was thinking about that in the sense of just the problem solving or aspect of it. Also, to me, it's like so often kids, when you're learning to spell or I remember looking at some things that I made when I was a little kid and you're like, what is this word? Or yeah, I don't know how that really relates, but yeah, I definitely was thinking about that.
Yeah, well, because I love the way too, then you break down as she's, breaks down the words and the way that you see them, appear on screen and then this just explosion of heart when you get to the love is for everybody. Like it's just, it's such a great moment. That like epiphany moment when she gets the word. And I feel like that, because I love the way you kind of handled the repetitive nature of it. And, it's so funny because of course my whole impression of this film was just completely in my own head about like, oh, this was someone that you knew who had experience. And so then you told her story and then it's like, oh, it was actually a written poem, which is just very cool. Totally different expectation of, how you experienced it and how you interpreted it. So because my question was, do you know if did anyone ever reach out to Estefani to tell her that her film was, or her card was made into a film? Like, it just seems like, so did you ever have any communication with Araceli, or it was just you only were handed this information? Does she know that you made this film?
She does, yeah. And we spoke early on of like things that she wanted to include in the film, but mostly her prompt was like pretty open-ended. I know that she wanted like representation of people of color in the film, but that was kind of her only feedback initially. And yeah, I think she was happy with it. So yeah.
So did you get an opportunity to really talk with her about her experience in writing this poem? If this was an actual experience that I'm presuming it's an actual experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she didn't have any, like you said, she was pretty open with how you could interpret it.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool. And where is she based?
She's in New York.
Yeah. So what would you most like viewers, and particularly younger viewers and students who are watching, what would you like them to take away from this film?
I think that I think just the message is so beautiful that I think that, love is for everybody. It unites all of us, and it's especially now, it's a great message. I think also younger viewers, I did a workshop at another festival with some students where they were asked to kind of create images like abstract feelings or emotions. And I think that's a good takeaway. I tried to make the drawings a little more like simplistic to look more childlike, I guess. But yeah, mostly I would say the message of, love is for everybody.
It's for everybody. It's a pretty great one. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what the animation process is for you? I know you talked a little about storyboarding, but how you kind of, particularly for kids, like how you kind of create those animations and all the particularly different layers, since there's so many different styles in there.
Yeah, like I said, I usually start with an animatic or storyboards, and then I will pull it into, I use After Effects mostly, and lay it out in a timeline to just get a sense of how it's moving. And like I said too, sometimes when I have a general idea of, in the beginning, it starts with there's an elephant on an orange line. I'm like, okay, I'll draw an elephant on an orange line, or like flowers, or there's parts of it that seem pretty literal. So I didn't think it was necessary to go off and represent a completely different image. So if I know exactly kind of what I want that to look like, I'll start drawing it and designing it. But then if I get to points where I'm not really sure what I want to do, I'll just try and figure it out as I move. And usually I do, like once I have a sense of like some of the textures and things like that. I like to do a lot of kind of like abstract particle sort of animation. So I usually start by, start with the animatics, and then I'll make style frames, which are essentially just drawing what one frame of the film would look like. And then once I do that, I will go in, and for some of the animation, I'll do like rough sketches of what the animation will look like. And I usually clean that up in Photoshop to make my lines a little more consistent. And then some of the animation I also do in After Effects for like the compositing element, like the parts where there's video layers and text in the layering. I do everything in that program.
It sounds so simple.
Yeah, that's it.
What other project, what are you working on now? Like tell us a little bit about your other work.
Yeah, I am just finished up a project for Google, which is coming out, I think, in 2 weeks. And I am working on the animation for a show called Axios on HBO. That should be starting up again next week. And I've also been developing a TV series that I'm currently pitching. And I also work on paintings too when I can. So I like to
like this beautiful painting behind you.
Yeah, that one I did. Yeah.
So it sounds like from an animation perspective, it's actually probably conducive to working during quarantine to be able to actually get work done. Are you finding that you're able to be more or less productive during this time?
Yeah, I feel like animation is always pretty isolating, socially distanced. So I feel like it's been okay, I guess. I usually work from home, so that part of it hasn't really been affected.
But it's, knowing that for a lot of other film productions, everything had to stop because of people having to get together and shoot. But for you, you can actually continue to generate and create content without having to leave your home. That's very nice. True. Yeah. Even if it is still isolating.
Right. Totally.
Well, I don't have any more questions for you, Jordan. Anything else that you would like to say to our audiences about your film?
Thanks so much for including it, and I really hope that you enjoy it, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jordan. It's really been a pleasure to get to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
It's exactly what I feel like we all need right now is to.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
I think I might go watch it again 3 or 4 more times today. Just
oh, nice. Okay. Turn off the news and just, yeah.
That and remind yourself that love is for everybody.
True.
So thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.